And dead. Ha! Weren't expecting that now, were you? It's what you get for assuming the power of my Kraken. You know, I said this in clan chat earlier, but I never thought I would one day wake up and be like, you know what, I'm just gonna put 4 form on the Kraken. And you know what, while I'm at it, I'm gonna sink 8000 kuva into a Riven for it as well, but here we are. So I welcome you to another installment of Reasonably Rolled Rivens, a series where we take a look at Rivens that you can reasonably roll yourself with just a little bit of kuva. Now the Kraken is pretty much just a meme weapon that's mastery rank 0 and is appropriately terrible for the mastery rank it requires. The damage isn't great and most of it is coming in the form of impact as well. The status chance could be better. The reload speed is atrocious, especially since you only have 7 shots in the magazine because it's a burst pistol that fires 2 rounds. And it has almost non-existent crit chance as well. But I still wanted to give it a shot because I had a Riven for it and I thought it would be rather amusing to run around in something like Sanctuary Onslaught with a Kraken if it turned out to be at least somewhat decent. So I rolled and rolled and rolled with a little bit of kuva that I had, and I was actually getting decent numbers because the only person that's using the Kraken is Tactical Potato when he's shitposting about the Kraken, so the disposition is sky high and you're gonna get some decent numbers with it. And I ended up getting this roll right here. I did roll a few more times after that, but I kept this one because it gave me an idea for an interesting build that could actually work in something like Sanctuary Onslaught. So I dusted off the Kraken and slapped on 4 forma, which were 2 Vs, a dash, and in this case a D for the Riven. And I went for sort of a standard Rivened up gas setup that's running Hornet Strike for damage, then we have Barrel Diffusion for multi-shot, Lethal Torrent for fire rate and multi-shot, and then Quick Draw for some reload speed, because as I've said already, the reload time for this weapon is absolutely atrocious, and I just could not stand the Kraken without Quick Draw, so that's why that's there. And then comes sort of the gas portion, so we have the Riven, Kraken, Toxiata, which adds toxin damage and damage, both of which contribute to the damage over time effect from gas damage. Then we have Pathogen rounds for some extra toxin, Pistol Pestilence for even more toxin and some status chance, and finally Scorch, which combines with all the toxin into gas and adds even more status. Now the reason I went for Pathogen rounds rather than Primed Heated Charge, which would give me more gas damage, is that the heat damage that's combined into gas doesn't actually affect the damage over time effect you get from the toxin dot that the gas cloud leaves behind. It only affects the upfront portion of the gas damage, whereas toxin damage affects the damage over time effect you get from the toxin dot that's left behind by the cloud as well. So if you're ever building a gas-based status setup, just remember that toxin is far more valuable than heat. Now, how is the performance? Well, you already saw the Corpus clip in the beginning. It shreds them pretty damn fast because it bypasses their shields and goes straight for their health, so it's actually pretty good. It's actually fairly effective versus the Infested as well, especially the smaller units, though the performance may vary a little bit because if you have a healer hidden somewhere and he's reducing all the damage they take, you're not gonna do an awful lot. And as it is to be expected with gas damage, it's not that great versus the Grenier. It's not completely terrible, but all the armor they have just reduces the ticks of the toxin procs way too much. Though it does get pretty spicy when you have an Adarza Kavad with you and it gives you the Cat's Eye buff. Then it's actually not too shabby even versus the heavily armored Grenier. Now, I usually do a bit of an outro at this point where I'm like, well, if you got yourself a Riven for this weapon, you might not want to throw it away because it's actually really cool. But this is the Kraken we're talking about, people. Don't do this. Why would you? Well, I guess if you want to troll people, which is why I did this, right? So I can go into Hydron or maybe do like a squad-based onslaught and run Korra with this gas setup so I can ensnare the enemies together, AoE them down, actually do a decent amount of damage and be like, bow down before the Kraken. And that's pretty much the only reason why you would ever want to do something like this. Just please don't. It only really works with Korra because of Ensnare or Spaghetti Nidus, or I guess a Vortex Vauban would kind of work as well. That's it. Now don't get me wrong, it's not the worst thing in the world. It actually clears the star chart really well and you could probably take it into a couple of sorties as well, but the amount of resources and time you have to pour into it is just not worth it. This weapon is just a load of ass. It's really, really bad. There are so many better weapons you can pick up. So Kraken out of 10 would not recommend. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I thank you very much for watching. As always guys, I hope you've enjoyed it and I will see you next time. Bye bye.
To keep the dark from coming, feel the weight of song of sons and daughters by the heart of who we are, making peace to build a future, strong, united, working till we